Hey there, I'm Sully and welcome to the Gun Club. Today we're going to get into the Gun Show Loophole. Now, when I first started this channel a while back, I decided that I wasn't going to try to rant and rave and whine and moan and complain every day about everything. I didn't want it to be Sully's bitch of the day, so to speak. But on the other side of that coin, the more I look at a lot of things, the more I see some stuff that just bugs me. Possibly because it's either dishonesty or just ignorance of the facts or what, I don't know. But one of the things that I hear a lot, and I've been hearing a lot in different chat groups, is people asking about the gun show loophole. Now, when we talk about the gun show loophole, and if you haven't heard it, basically it goes something like this. That, everybody who gets a gun has to get a background check. However, there's this gun show loophole out there, and people go out to these gun shows and they drive away with, trunk loads of firearms that are totally unaccounted for and unregistered, no background check, no nothing, and that's how all the criminals buy all their guns and all the crazy people buy all their guns because they go to the gun shows, and there's this loophole there that there's no background checks. Well, that's false. That's very false. Let's talk about it for a little bit. Now, when we talk about the gun show loophole, first off, if you buy any firearm from a licensed federal firearms dealer or a federal firearms licensee, that gun is tracked from the day it goes into their inventory. It goes on their gun book as one of the serial numbers that they have, along with a description of it. And they have to either A, have it still within their possession, in their shop, in their store, in their safe, whatever, or they have to have documentation of who they sold it to, and that person had to go through a background check. There are very, very few limits to that. Occasionally law enforcement or something, federal law enforcement may be able to purchase something without a background check, buy it on their badge, so to speak. But as a general rule of thumb, if a federal firearms licensee gets in 20 guns and he has 11 left in his store, say, he better have documentation for the 9 he sold and background checks for the 9 people he sold those to and all the related paperwork and the ATF forms. Even as a concealed weapons permit instructor and permit holder myself, I still have to go through the same background check. Even though my instructor card is issued by the people who run the background check at the state, I still have to go through that. So I carry my permit, everything else with me. Now, it may make my background check a little bit faster or easier because they've got all my information on file, but I still fill out the same form and it still gets sent to the same place along with information. I still have to provide valid ID and everything else. So any federal dealer, now, what if it's at a gun show? They have to do it at a gun show. What if it's at a flea market? They do the same thing at a flea market. Any FFL dealer has to account for every single one of their firearms. So, as far as buying from a gun show loophole and a gun show, things like that, not at a dealer. Dealers are not doing it. There's no loophole for dealers. And that's who basically sets up to sell guns at the vast majority of gun shows. Most of the gun shows that happen, people aren't even allowed to set up to sell in there unless they're a licensed dealer. Gun shows police that. They have to have documentation of their bona fides just to set up a table in a gun show. Now, where does the term come from? Well, there is a possibility that private person-to-person sales can go on. Now, they don't usually go on in the gun show. They may go on in the parking lot, or people may meet at a gun show. And if somebody's interested in selling something and someone else is interested in buying it, in some cases, they may be able to do a private person-to-person transaction. Now, those private person-to-person transactions are actually regulated in over half the states in this country. So if those private sales are regulated, they go through a full background check. As a matter of fact, there are some states that you can't even transfer a firearm outside your immediate family without going through a background check. So let's say your neighbor wants to buy your hunting rifle. You actually have to go to a federal firearms dealer and have a background check run on your neighbor, even though you may have lived together next door to each other for 20 years. But in over 50% of the states in this country, that goes through a background check. Now, there are some states where you can have a person-to-person transaction without a background check. Some states, and it's very limited. Again, less than 50% of the states. In those cases, the individual selling the firearm still can, A, refuse to sell it, B, they can require a background check if they have any questions, and C, if they have any real doubts about somebody, they can refuse the transaction altogether, even though it's a person-to-person transaction. I know in my case, if I don't personally know somebody, if I want to sell a gun to my friend Joe, that's fine. I'll ask Joe, for a copy of his copy of his carry permit. If he's got that, I assume he's been through a background check and had fingerprints done at the state level because I know how that works. At that point, I've satisfied myself. He's legit, he's valid, he's not going to be a problem. So again, private transactions can only occur less than 50% of the states in the country. And even with a private transaction, the seller can take any steps they deem reasonable to determine someone's valid to purchase the firearm. Now, if the seller knows the person is not valid to own a firearm, say I know that someone got out of prison for a felony or they're under indictment for domestic violence or something similar to that. If I sell a firearm to them or loan a firearm or trade a firearm to somebody who I know or have reason to know is a prohibited possessor, guess what? I can go to jail. As a matter of fact, there are some states where if you do it and they commit a crime with it, you're charged as an accessory to that crime as well. I believe that was Minnesota. So it's interesting to note, the gun show loophole. Yes, there is a small loophole that's valid in less than half of the states in this country where somebody can purchase a firearm without a background check, so to speak. However, given the amount that we hear about the gun show loophole and the big deal it's made out of, it sounds like it's a lot bigger of a deal than it is. Could this be something that either the media, either from not knowing or willful ignorance or just ignorance of the situation, that they don't understand, that they don't know what they're talking about? Could it be that members of the media have never gone out and actually tried to purchase a firearm? I know I see sometimes comments made, well, one of these days it will be as easy to do blah, blah, blah as it is to buy a gun. Again, as a state-certified CWP instructor and permit holder, when I go in, I have to go through a background check, I have to fill out a form, I have to provide valid ID, and I have to wait there while they do all that and check it to make sure I'm valid to do it, make sure I'm valid to purchase. So again, I have to provide valid photo ID, all the documentation, fill out the form, they do my background check. So where's the loophole? The loophole is something that, in my opinion, and again, me talking for what it's worth, in my opinion, people like to talk about the loophole. They like to make it sound like a big deal. We need to do something about the awful gun show loophole that doesn't even exist in half the country. The media won't say that. Folks, if nothing else in this channel, yes, I know, I rant, I get on my soapbox, and I'll admit that. On the other side of the coin, one thing I do want to do, I want to try to overcome some of the negative stuff that's out there, or not even negative, but incorrect, misleading, inappropriate, bad information that's out there. Again, I'm a firearms instructor. I'm a firearms enthusiast. You could say I'm pretty much in the pro-gun lobby. I'm also in the pro-valid information lobby. I'm tired of people lying about guns. I'm tired of people vilifying gun owners. I'm tired of hearing, we need to go out and fix the gun show loophole that really doesn't exist to a large extent. I'd be willing to bet that given the amount of people in the country, you'd have a hard time finding crimes that are actually committed with guns purchased at some gun show loophole. But wait a minute, where are all the illegal guns coming from out there? If criminal A has a bunch of guns and his buddy criminal B gets out of prison, who he knows is a convicted felon because they were there when they robbed the same store together, Criminal B asks criminal A, and they swap guns around left and right. It's not the valid purchasers. It's not the responsible firearm owners. There are a lot of guns out there in the hands of people who are criminals. They don't go to gun shows to get them. They don't go to hunting clubs to get them. They don't go to private transactions among law-abiding citizens to get them. I know, me personally, I'll never sell a firearm to somebody who I don't know is valid to purchase. Why? I don't want to go to jail. Responsible firearm owners are not trying to come up with some gun show loophole. But we're going to talk about that because that's the way they're going to fix crime. I guarantee you, you look at the vast majority of murders in this country, these guns aren't being purchased at gun shows. These guns are being purchased on the street, back alleys, by criminals. You want to stop some of this stuff? Don't go after gun shows and don't go after reliable purchasers, valid purchasers. How about going after some of the guns on the street? How about going to the cities where gun crime is going through the roof and telling the police to go in there and get as many guns off the street as they can? Unfortunately, we're not going to worry about that. Politicians, it's a lot easier to come up with a gun show loophole than to say we need to get into some of these inner cities and deploy a tactical team. That's not popular. What's popular is vilify gun owners, vilify guns. The law-abiding citizen who wants to protect themselves. The father who wants to pass down the grandfather's shotgun or wants to sell a firearm to a friend at the hunting lodge. No, they've got to go through a dealer. I'll wrap this up with a quick story. Had a very good friend of mine who I've known for 15 years. Is also a firearms instructor. NRA certified, state certified, I believe multiple states. Wanted to sell me a firearm. Because of the laws of the state where this person lived, the two of us had to go to a gun shop in that state. We had to have my friend sell the gun to the gun shop, who could then ship it to a dealer in my state. The dealer in my state could then run my background and sell that gun to me. Yes, the shipping and all the transactions through the gun shops cost a bunch of extra money. Because one firearms instructor wanted to sell to another valid firearms instructor who have known each other for 15 years. We had to pay transaction fees, shipping fees, insurance, everything else. We're demonizing gun owners. We're demonizing responsible individuals. I promise you, the guns that are used in crime, the vast majority of them, they're not being sold in gun shows. They're in back alleys. Alrighty, well that's all I've got on this. I'll get off my soapbox for now and I'll let you go. Folks, if nothing else, I hope you learn a little something from this. You may hear something that's a little bit different from time to time. My best thing is I'm trying to give you information so you can learn more about what's going on, so you have a better idea of what's going on in the world. If you want to, you can check out our locals page. We've got a lot of real good information on there. We post articles. We have various humor articles up there, current events. If you have questions, feel free. Drop me an email if you're interested in classes. And again, we have our Rumble channel we're trying to get going. Thanks a lot, and you have a great evening.